Thursdays on JP, Kathy, and the Crew Network. And let me acquaint you and everybody to the Lawyer Show and what it is we do. We're just lawyers, and we're talking like lawyers, and we're being lawyers. And we're talking about the law and being lawyers, and we're talking about lawyer stuff. That's why we're calling it the Lawyer Show. And my guest today is Paul Wingo, who is a Dallas lawyer. He does personal injury work. And so anyway, but I guess, Paul, just go ahead. All right, you got an hour to talk. Shoot. Who are you?
Well, so my name is Paul Wingo. I'm a personal injury attorney, of course. I am a catastrophic injury attorney. I office here in downtown Dallas, and I am a fourth-generation Texas boy. I grew up out in Weatherford, Texas. I availed myself of the public schools out there. Had a lovely family growing up. I went to Weatherford College on a choral scholarship.
Okay, what's a choral scholarship? I've never heard of it. I think that's made up. But what? But go ahead. What is it?
True story. I clearly have always been too fat and unathletic, so I never did any sports. But something I did have a little bit of success with in high school was choir. And in fact, I actually met my now wife.
Oh, that's what choral is. Oh, you mean like as in chorus?
Yeah, like choir.
And you can get one of those at Weatherford College.
Weatherford College is a little two-year institution, and I guess someone had passed away that had believed in the arts and endowed the school with a little bit of a scholarship. And somehow I ended up at Weatherford College on a scholarship for choir. I was able to go there, and while I was there, I quickly realized my wife, who's a very, first of all, much cooler person than I am, does like cartoon voices for a living. Absolutely the coolest person ever. Would have absolutely been a better guest, even though this show is about lawyers, just because she's that much cooler than me. One time I was sitting there at the piano, and I had been taking piano lessons, choir, like vocal lessons. I've been taking all these theory classes, doing all this singing, doing all this stuff. And I was humming some like Coldplay song. And it was like, be-doo boop, be-doo boop, be-doo, be-doo boop, be-doo boop, be-doo.
No, keep going. That was good.
I'll do it like 6 hours.
Okay.
And I was trying to pick it out on the piano, and I couldn't do it. I've been there for like 20, 30 minutes. And I was like, hey, Brina, could you play this? And she's like, what is it? I sang it to her, and of course, she's so cool, she didn't even know who Coldplay was. She's such a hip, like, real musician or whatever. And she's like, okay, we'll just sing it again. And I was like, okay, and I sang it to her, and then within seconds, she played it. And that's when I realized, I was like, there are people so much intrinsically better at music than I am. I have no desire to starve for this profession. And like I heard somewhere, all lawyers are but failed artists. And so that was essentially my path. That very moment crystallized that I absolutely was not going to be a musician. And so I started working at like a little mom and pop, 2 or 3 person shop in Fort Worth as a legal assistant, carrying files back and forth. And working there while I was at Weatherford College, I realized one of the biggest issues for lawyers was understanding how to run the business of being a lawyer. And so whenever I got done with Weatherford and got my associate's in arts there, I went to UNT and studied business entrepreneurship. So instead of doing the traditional like government or poli-sci or different kind of route like that, or any criminal justice or anything like that, say business entrepreneurship, because like I knew what at least some lawyers did at that point, and I realized that it was the critical thing that a lot of lawyers don't have is the idea of actually how to run a business. And so I studied business entrepreneurship while working at that law firm, and then moved and started working at the UNT Student Legal Services. and ended up like working the vast bulk of my undergrad in law. And so they gave me a kind of a practical experience of just, actually seeing files, actually, not just some sort of cerebral function of that. I went to U of H down in Houston, and while I was there, it was like for all lawyers, a pretty awful experience.
No, I don't think that's limited to lawyers at U of H. I think that's kind of everything. I mean, that's Cougar High. We're in North Texas. If we have anybody from U of H that's watching this, I mean, whatever, that's their problem. But you know what? I totally forgot until we were talking right now. I actually kind of forgot how you and I met. And you may not remember, but I met you at a party of David and Stephanie Brem. Do you remember?
Oh, yeah.
And you're going to like this. Yes. And for the viewers at home, I think we were wearing diapers. Like over our clothes. It was a bachelor party for David Brem, and we were actually wearing, do you remember now? So I got to know you very, very fast. Very fast.
Just rocketed right into it.
That's right. So, and I had forgotten that you had a background in the arts, and so that's how you knew them, because my wife also was in the arts, and so anyway, and I have to give a plug for her. She is the director of Main Street McKinney, and the director of McKinney Performing Arts Center, and they desperately need any and all patronship right now downtown McKinney, but also my law office does as well. So. But again, I do criminal law, I do criminal defense. Don't go out there and commit a crime unless of course you're going to get caught and then pay your lawyer a lot of money. We'll deal with it, right? Okay, Paul. So I kind of cut you off there. So you were talking about how awful U of H was. Keep going.
Well, I was, as I say, kind of a country bumpkin, and each journey into
so that's what
school,
you're saying about all people from Weatherford?
I mean, I certainly was.
Careful. I think they've got JP, Kathy, and the crew. They may. All right, keep going.
I mean, I certainly had no. I had no framework in my brain of how to deal with any of these kind of like different levels of education. So, getting into an associate's program, that was a big deal to me. Getting my undergrad, that was a big deal to me. Going down to Houston, I lived in a dorm for the first time in my life. And
in law school.
Genuinely horrific experience, because I took a semester off whenever I graduated high school, and I backpacked Europe for a semester. And then I kind of worked my way through undergrad. So I think I ended up taking about 5.5 years for my undergrad, just so I could pay for it, by working. Which is interesting that I could do that. I don't think that is remotely humanly possible now to finance most of an undergrad education, by actually just working.
That's hard to do.
Yeah. And so, like 20, whatever, 4, 25, and they had ran out of graduate housing. So I start my first semester of law school vastly intellectually underprepared for the challenges I was getting ready to receive, and staying in a dorm where I was with freshmen that were literally screaming and drinking and going insane every night.
Did you show them how it was really done?
I showed them how I literally almost had like panic attacks every day and was like,
they were like, "What's this guy doing? He's actually what's this guy doing with his 17 highlighter colors and
manically pacing, at 2 o'clock in the morning trying to study." The first year of law school is a, then you settle into it and drink way too much and do all the fun stuff. But that initial threshold is real punch in the face. And
And
so,
then you
so
have
that
the
was a
rest
little,
of your career to really develop your alcoholism. I shouldn't
yeah,
joke.
really.
You know, we have in the Texas lawyers, there's TLAP, which is it is help for lawyers who have a substance abuse or addiction problems, and I think it's like us and dentists that are like,
But yeah, we're at the highest. Like, it's interesting you mentioned TLAP. I actually have a CLE presentation I do about lawyers and happiness. And you're absolutely correct. Lawyers and dentists are two of the most perennially unhappy professions. Luckily we're not staring at mouths every day, but we do have extraordinarily challenging times where everybody who's coming to us is typically dealing with a high stress situation. Right. Whatever practice you're in. I mean, they don't come to lawyers typically for low stress, like high fives, right? I mean, you're coming to a lawyer because some shit's going down, or you need some heavy hitting brains on some issue somewhere. And so, we're workaholics. We get ourselves immersed in horrific amounts of debt. I speak at this program for Jackson Walker typically every year. I doubt they'll do it this year because of the pandemic. But typically what it is it's a program for law students that are awaiting, they've taken the bar, but they're awaiting their bar results, which is one of the worst times in a human's life, where you're just like literally waiting for 4 months to see.
I don't know about you, I like not knowing. I like waking up every day just kind of knowing, you know what, my world's not going to come to a crashing halt today, right? And then, but it plays games with you because the bar is on a curve, right? It's on like a bell curve. And this is neither here nor there, but you just have to remember, I don't have to be smarter than the test. I just have to be smarter than or more prepared than 20 or 30% of you people out there that are taking the test with me. And when you look around the room, you feel a little bit better. Anyway, keep going. So so you're talking about you're talking about the work that you do with that. But go ahead.
So essentially, humans that are sizing each other up exactly in the same metric that you've just described, and in visiting with them, I always go and we get dinner and stuff afterwards and have drinks and kind of talk. One college student last year, one lawyer in waiting, if you will, I don't even know if he passed the damn bar, had amassed between his undergrad and law school close to $375,000 of debt.
That's awesome. I need to meet this guy. Yeah, keep going. Yeah. I need to sell him some things is what I need to do.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I got some oceanfront property in Arizona.
Oh, boy, yeah. We'll just, finance it. Okay.
But, I mean, you honestly, I mean, I ended up out of law school, I think, with like $115,000 in debt. And
okay.
I was horrified. And I didn't really have hardly any debt from undergrad. I mean, I essentially gotten most of that paid for, and so I mean, I was genuinely horrified, with that amount of debt. And I think that kind of debt on a society and on people is corrosive. I think some debt is good because it opens doors and allows. But when you have staggering amounts of debt, essentially you become solely focused on generating capital. You're not worried about the integrity of the profession. You're not worried about, what you're doing for people. You're worried about your cash flow. And that, I think, is a problem. I mean, I think, lawyers have been the spearhead of most social justice and most, large-scale social change in, American history. And when they're shackled with the debt, the time that they would be the most aggressive right out of college is when they are literally up to their eyeballs thinking, trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah.
And then,
Real quick, I've got to let everybody know that they're listening to JP, Kathy, and the Crew Network. You can catch JP, Kathy, and the Crew between 7:30 and 9, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'm Jeremy Rosenthal. You're watching The Lawyer Show. And the topic here is corrosive student loan debt. And I really like that word corrosive, and you're right, because I never really thought about it the way you just kind of put it. But you're absolutely right, because you've got these people, you've got young lawyers who are leaving law school, and they're going to take risks and make decisions that they wouldn't normally make because they're saddled with that toxic debt. That's a great point. And you were talking too about the one with $300 and something thousand. That's soul crushing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to have a house, that you owe. I mean, like, listen, I'm not namby-pamby with this stuff, and I was very thankful that I was able to finance my education. I certainly wouldn't have been able to do it any other way. I mean, I got all public financing, and so I was very, fortunate that I was given that opportunity. But I think that's pervasive across the entire professionals and college graduates.
I think we lost him. Yeah.
So you can keep it going. Just figure out what's wrong.
Okay.
That's the nice thing about recording.
Yeah.
Is it here? It is. I don't know what's wrong with this. We're gonna connect to what you were just connected to anyway, but for some reason it's just leaving the network.
All right.
Which is awesome because this is all first time issues.
Always, we have a history where
We seem to.
it's okay.
Today's just been great.
All right, you back?
Hey, girl. Hi.
I think it's us that's leaving you, and not the other way around. Okay, so do you want to tell me when we keep going?
You can just go right now.
Okay, yeah. So you were in the middle of we were talking about the debt. So
So let's break that up. So get back on track.
okay,
Are you guys back on track?
are we back on track? I don't know. Yeah, we're ready.
Okay, so 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, Paul. So, so talking about the toxic student loan debt, one thing that they told us, I remember first week of law school, they said if you live like a lawyer when you're a student, you're going to live like a student when you're a lawyer. Talk about some of the things the way that you advise some of these candidates, some of these younger lawyers that may be getting or already are well in over their head in debt.
Well, I'll start with the advice that I give people that are prospective law school students. I know one of the things that a lot of people banter about is, well, get into the best school that you can get into, right? I disagree. Get into the cheapest school in the market you think that you're going to work in, and go actually work for attorneys throughout law school. You'll get so much more practical information. Now, don't get me wrong. If you're Doogie Howser, smart, and get into one of the really, really pristine colleges, I get it. Do that thing. But for the most part, I mean, I just certainly don't care about, that pedigree in most of this. And I think that's where people get shackled with debt. You go to a school where it's $30,000 or $40,000 a year, and that's just for the tuition. And then you got to add living expenses and all of that. And then you're around a lot of people that are probably more affluent than you, and that their parents are financing it or whatever, and you're trying to live at their means and their level and trying to run in that circle. And you're absolutely right. Your statement, if you live like a lawyer when you're a law student, you're going to live like a law student when you're a lawyer. It's absolutely true, because but so many people are doing it to validate themselves.
Well, and I get that, and that's a frustrating aspect to be sure, and I always felt too, kind of on the topic, and this is where I'm going to really upset a lot of people, namely Baylor lawyers, and I don't care if I upset them or not. By the way, I'm board certified. Go me, right? We're going to talk a lot on this show about all the push-ups I can do. Jeremy Rosenthal, criminal lawyer, 972-369-0577, right? But when I took the board certification exam, it was like, man, it was just like a time warp, because I'm like, all of you aggressive Baylor people are just here now, and you're just 15 years older than you were, and you still have your MacBook Pros, But like, and I joke about Baylor lawyers. My best friend in the world is a Baylor lawyer, and he and I have had a lot of debates and discussions, philosophical, some of them, on the role of law schools and how different law schools need to be preparing people. If you take a school like Baylor, Baylor has outstanding students. They have an outstanding faculty. As much as I poke at them and make fun, I think even the lawyers that I've had to hire for, things in my life, business ventures and this and that, or if I've dealt with probate, when I have family member dies, are all Baylor lawyers now that I look at it. But, they have a very, very practical based law school, and if you've ever heard a Baylor lawyer say, I took practice court, and it's like I'm in the Marines, is kind of how they sort of mean that. And I'm like, well, so did you learn how to do a 2-hole punch? Did you learn how to fix the photocopier? What does that even mean that you went to this, whatever? It's not the same thing as practical experience. But here's the weird thing to me. Those lawyers are going to go on and clerk for federal judges, and some of those lawyers are going to go on and be state and federal judges. They don't need to learn how to fix the photocopier. They don't need to learn how to do the 2-hole punch. Your smaller law schools, they need to learn that. Those are the students that do that, and other small schools tend to want to educate their students like they're going to be Supreme Court justices. Wrong, completely opposite. I think those are the schools that need to teach their students how to get out and scrap, because they're not probably going to have a job when they leave law school. That's my 2 cents. But what other thoughts do you have on this? Because what I really want to talk about is how we can hire Paul Wingo I want to, that's the topic here. That's why we brought you here. And man, you got a nice office. We were taking a look at that earlier via Zoom. You don't have to show us all. I know you got your phone kind of propped up there, but that's big, man. That's big stuff. Oh,
well, thank you. I appreciate it. I've been very fortunate in my practice. Some of the things that I've always thought about in practice is corresponding skill sets. And one of the things that I learned when I first started working as a lawyer is that I didn't need to be the rock star trial attorney. But what I really liked doing is promoting and making sure that the rock star trial attorney has everything that they need so they can focus exclusively on that and not worrying about the other things.
You're Barry Gordy.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what was it? Don King.
There you go, man. You're the ringleader. You're the hustle behind the muscle. So yeah, keep going. So you're talking about skill sets, bringing teams together.
So that's one thing that you can, I think, is really important. As you figure out your careers, it's about saying what things can I do that are exceptional. And so many of us try to do things that we're not exceptional at, but want to be good at. And bang our head on it, and that's fine. And you can end up being moderately successful in that universe and have a good life, and everything's fine with that. But when you're humble enough to say, you know what, this certain thing I'm not the greatest at, but I can step over here and do something else that correspondingly, when it's attached to someone who's very good at that, essentially that synergizes, and the sum of the parts is much more than, or makes a much larger whole. And so that's kind of what I found with my law partner, Chris Hamilton. I mean, genuinely, and I don't mean this in any sense of hyperbole, like genuinely one of the best litigators I have ever seen, ever. I mean, it is astounding just how passionate and intense he is on it. And, you know, what solidified us working together is whenever I'd left my last law firm, I essentially had some money in my pocket. I had a few cases, but had a lot of bandwidth, didn't have really any obligations, gotten clear with the house and didn't have any debts or anything else like that. Got my student loans all paid off. And, you know, I took a month off and went and tried a big case with him. And it was just astounding. I just didn't even understand what that kind of practice could be. So essentially what we came up with is a business model that allows us to work with and help catastrophically injured folks. And that kind of starts with the stuff that you think about with personal injury attorneys on the most part, you know, like the 18-wheeler accident where somebody gets screwed up, gets a broken leg, or their back's hurt and they have to have a back surgery, you know, but pretty significant accidents, not your just bender type stuff. Handling those cases on up to, we have some extraordinarily intense cases right now. You know, one of them where a woman was murdered by her cable guy that just came into her house and murdered her, you know, while driving the company vehicle. We have cases where you have children that have horrible brain injuries and are going to need round-the-clock care for their life, and their families' lives have been completely shattered. Folks that have had amputations and, you know, things where you literally are going from a full and competent life to all of a sudden someone has been ripped away from you that you will never get a final peace with. Or even worse, someone that you love is essentially brought to the knees and will require consistent care for their life, and trying to figure those mess of situations out. And so essentially we were able to assemble a business model that allowed for our team to give kind of the highest level of care to folks that have been like that. And, you know, more specifically, allow Chris to not worry about any of the business implications or thoughts about that, and just do what he's the best at. And so that's a real, you know, great process, and, you know, been very fortunate and, you know, had good success with it. So, you know, I am, you know, very pleased with kind of the existence that I've had the opportunity to get into at this point in my life.
Well, let's first off, I have to tell everybody also, you're listening to The Lawyer Show. I'm Jeremy Rosenthal, the lawyer. Also, Paul Wingo, the lawyer, is my guest today. And we're on the JP, Kathy, and the Crew Network. You can see them every morning, 7:30 to 9. Okay, so let's talk big picture here, okay? Because what you guys do is very important, and it's very difficult, right? You're taking, like you're saying, people who come into your office with huge losses that can't possibly be, in the words of the law, made whole in the true sense, right? And what I think a lot of people don't understand is just how I always thought of plaintiff law kind of like spiders, right? Everybody sees a spider and goes, ick, ooh, yuck, right? But the fact is you would be overloaded with pestilence. You would have the populations of other insects would go absolutely bananas and bonkers without them. So you absolutely, positively have to have them. Because in a way, we can take an 18-wheel company, right? A truck company who is fudging their log books, right? I'm sure you guys see that a lot. Yeah. They're fudging their log books. Their drivers are, driving across the country, not sleeping like they're supposed to, not sleeping like they're putting it in the log books. Maybe they're drinking, or whatever. You could either have the government regulate that and raise everybody's taxes, or what we can do is we can have somebody like you guys who basically take them to task, and now they've got a reason to follow the law, right?
Absolutely. Well, and that's essentially a capitalist system, right? Like, our system is not designed for morality, and it just is not. I mean, it's designed for increasing the bottom line, and so and nobody is explicitly evil. I'm not even trying to get on any high horse about that. But what happens is you are trying to maximize profits, and you get a whole bunch of people together, and essentially each bad decision is just a sliver from each person, and it starts combining into practices and things that are generating profits and are some engines of our economy, but end up exposing the public to risks that are far beyond what we expect in our society. And so the idea is that you punish them through the dollar signs, and then what'll happen is they'll be forced to correct those things because it's not market viable.
Right.
And so
that's right. And I did for several years after I left the DA's office. I've been exclusively criminal now. Oh my gosh, 12 years, something like that. Where I gave up all civil litigation for Lent, is what I tell people. They laugh because they know I'm Jewish, but anyway, a perfect example would be like an amusement park, right? You can maximize profits by hiring 18, 19, 20-year-olds who have no clue what they're doing, right? And you can get away with it for a long time unless or until, somebody dies because they don't know how to run a ride correctly, or they don't know how to manage some other emergency correctly. And the plaintiff lawyers, that's the mechanism that brings equilibrium, if you will, to the force. And so that's kind of what I think a lot of people don't get about how important the civil justice system is.
Yeah, absolutely. And, don't get me wrong. It's like everything. There's good and bad examples in every community. Most of it's some varying forms of gray. I think the plaintiff's bar, one of the things that the plaintiff's bar, I believe, gets a bad rap for, and probably justifiably so to some extent. I think due to some of the significant inequalities in our society, there are some predatory practices that, especially to people that are very low income, essentially are trying to cash in. And because insurance is required, they're trying to cash in on a certain thing. And I'm not faulting or thinking that, it's just the way our system is.
No, let's fault them. No. Let's talk about insurance company. No, we'll get there in a minute, but keep going. Sorry, Paul.
Well, no. So what I'm saying is on all sides, it's an imperfect system, right? Like, there's a lot of people who think that a personal injury claim might be their only way to succeed in our society, and that's when you're realizing that less and less people have access to the American dream, right? Like, when they think that a personal injury claim may be their only chance, at moving forward. For us, we are kind of like, our firm, we don't do any advertising or anything like that. What we do is we're a referral-based firm. So I kind of talk to folks kind of like we're like surgeons for lawyers. Like where lawyers are general practitioners that see, a whole bunch of clients at a certain level. Whenever something is, really significant injuries, and they realize like that's when they call us. And so, for us, it really is about, I've had the good fortune to be in a position where, we truly get to work and try to like balance the equities of a system where someone is broken.
Describe to me the most common client that you have, Paul.
So if you just, you can kind of think of it as a pyramid of how injuries occur. We have, people log billions, if not trillions of miles on the roadway each year. We are driving high velocity bullets around while distracted in every manner possible in our lifestyle. So, the largest segment of personal injury cases are auto accidents and premise liability cases where someone gets hurt on a premise, typically a business owner's premise or of some sort. And then it kind of goes up the line of people that are injured at the workplace or by someone, another general contractor on a site, stuff like that, to, people that are injured in hospitals and, when, a surgeon, gets drunk the night before and has shaky hands and something bad happens in a situation where they have absolutely zero control and put all of their faith and trust in this institution, right? Like, to the products that we have and, the different items that we use in our lifestyles and, how they're designed and manufactured. So, probably the single greatest common thread of my clients is just catastrophic injury. So we handle in virtually kind of every area where someone has been catastrophically injured. Aviation cases. Here's a gruesome detail that a lot of people don't know. A lot of people who are in lower altitude plane accidents, where it's 500 feet or less, they actually survive the initial impact. And it's the fire and the suffocation from the toxic fumes that actually ends up killing them. And to think about, it's one thing thinking about like it being over, you don't have any conscious pain and suffering, but to have your last several minutes of your life in choking agony while you're it's staggering. And so,
And again, back to, kind of some of the points, earlier, one of the things that I think the public doesn't understand, and you can talk to this, is the public just gets angry if they think somebody is getting something for nothing. And so, and I think people don't understand what a dangerous kind of an idea that is. Our aviation business, right? Airplane travel is the safest on the planet, right? And it's not all because the FAA is just so wonderful. I'm sure a lot of it is, but a lot of that is because Delta Airlines doesn't want to get sued into bankruptcy because of plane crashes, right? Or a manufacturer of a smaller plane, they're going to want to make they're not going to want somebody who they're liable to have suffered in the way that you just described. Another example, I heard this on the news, I don't know when, but if you look at our baby products, right, that are on the shelves at our stores, because of the rigorous regulations that we have, and because of our civil system of justice, they're the safest in the world. In China and other parts of the world, they don't buy from their own country, even though they could probably save money from doing it. They buy American in those instances because when it comes to your baby, we're just going to always do what's the safest.
It's a very interesting point that you raise with that, in the sense of, the getting to something for nothing. A lot of people feel like that, and I totally get it. There's definitely been, unmeritorious claims, but the reality is most of those are sifted out by our jury system.
Right.
Those, or extremely nominalized. Yes, there's outliers because we have hundreds of millions of people in our country, and we are one of the economic engines of the world, and so yes, there are no matter what position you have, there is points to back it up, but you have to look at the larger, more aggregate trends, and the reality is everybody feels like that until it's their family.
Right.
Oh, Robert, why would that be such and such? When your wife has her leg ripped off and bleeds out on the ground, leaving you with 2 infant children that you will now need to care for, and having to care for her as an invalid for the rest of her life, maybe you'll think a little differently about the system and how much it will cost in order to try to have some semblance of a decent life after that. Because the one quantity that we have is life. And once that's expired, it's gone. The implications of that are extraordinary. And, the suffering and the pain and the agony of this existence is a given. Our job is to try to make it less.
Yeah.
If there is a reasonably feasible way that we as a society can have a little bit better existence, a little less suffering on this short time we have on this mortal coil, then, that I think is important.
Yeah, and let me tell a quick story here too, because again, you just really raised a lot of good stuff. Because again, when I left the DA's office in Collin County, after I left being a prosecutor, I would get appointed by some judges. A lot of times they'll appoint younger lawyers who are kind of in that position, appointed as what's called an attorney ad litem or a guardian ad litem, which you probably deal a lot with in your case. And for those who are watching who are not lawyers, basically what that means is that when you have a typically a minor or somebody who can't make legal decisions on their own, what happens is the judge will step in and they will have, okay, this is the lawyer for the child. I'm going to have an independent person, right, who's going to be kind of a check between the child and whoever their guardian is, whoever their parent is, to make sure mom and dad or aunt or uncle or whoever's in charge of the lawsuit as the adult isn't trying to steal all the money, is trying to make the best decisions. And so I remember as an attorney ad litem, I remember dealing with really, really good folks who would feel guilty about getting a settlement from an insurance company. And I do want to talk about insurance here. But I would tell the people, I'd say, look, you feel this way because you're a good person, because you have a good heart, because you feel like you don't want to take something from somebody else for any reason. What you're getting from this insurance company, 2 things. Number 1, this is not charity. You are owed this money. And number 2, the insurance company, this is their end of the bargain. They know that they have to pay this. They know that they're responsible. And I said, look, every month you write a check to whatever insurance bureau in Omaha, Nebraska. Do they ever get your check, look at it and say, Joe and McKinney is such a good guy. He's always on time. He always pays, his premiums, even though we've raised them here and there. Let's just give this check back to him. They never do that. And so what I want to transition to just for a little bit is the venom and slime of the universe, which are insurance companies. And before I do that, JP, Kathy, and the crew, 7:30 to 9 every morning, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and you're listening to The Lawyer Show. I'm Jeremy Rosenthal. You can hear me noon to 1 every Thursday. And so anyway, back to insurance companies, and look, I have insurance. We have to have insurance. They perform an important role, but my God, they have, talk about their impact in the civil justice system, because, well, you probably like them even less than me, if that's entirely possible. Go ahead, Paul.
Well, so insurance companies, I think, are interesting, right? And kind of back to the point that I was talking about a little bit earlier. So it's a capitalist system, and the system is derived to make money. With insurance, it's mitigation of risk, right? It's how do we mitigate the risks and the items of life that we are not accounting for. And so it definitely has propensity to have the soul taken out of it, because what you're trying to do is make actuarial tables to profit on this, and you are more profitable the less claims you pay. Now, don't get me wrong, you do need to have some sort of adversarial system there, because everybody will try to take advantage of the system as well, right? And so, I don't try to be one of these like super dogmatic about all insurance is the worst and the evilest and stuff like that.
Oh, so you're calling me? What did you just? You called me
that,
what? The evil what?
Oh, you're breaking up here. Let me see.
No, that you're playing that game just because I'm going to go and say that insurance companies are evil and the spawn of whatever I'm teasing, Paul, but
I'm gonna give me just 1 second. I'm gonna try.
Oh, maybe you are really having problems.
Line in here. Let me try popping out, popping back in real quick.
I told my daughter, I said, you can do anything you want to in this planet, but if you work for an insurance company, I'm going to break your fucking legs. She doesn't understand. She's 9. She's like, she doesn't get it. But she will one day. She'll be like, my dad really always hated them. He had to pop off. So no. I was breaking up. Yeah, we have about 15 minutes, 20 minutes.
You're running right about there, 15.
Yeah, you're running right about, yeah. There was probably about 13.
13 minutes. Hey Siri, timer for 13 minutes.
Depending on how fast it gets back.
13 minutes and counting. Well, let me pause this.
Or I guess you can start it whenever you get.
Yeah. Yeah, he's back. All right, you're back? You're back? Can you hear me?
There we go.
Good. Okay, so we're gonna start back up again.
Okay, yeah, you started breaking up right as you were starting to talk about insurance.
Right, I was starting to go on a rant on about. Well, they're gonna edit this. That's the beautiful part of all this. You ready? Okay, so Paul, we were talking about insurance companies, and you seem to have a much nicer heart than I do. Now, I'm a criminal lawyer. I don't even deal with insurance companies. Back in another life, probably right after I left the DA's office, I tried my hand at a little bit of personal injury. And you seem very, again, you're very nice about them, but there's a couple things, for instance, and I want to get your take on them, because I did try some personal injury lawsuits. And man, the most discouraging part about it to me was that you would show up and people who knew nothing about your case were tired of the frivolous lawsuits, right? So there's that PR campaign, and then you feel like asking people, well, tell me about some of the frivolous lawsuits you've seen. Well, I don't know. I can't think of any, but you're already losing if your jury is kind of on that mindset. And another really horribly manipulative statute or law or rule of court, if you will, rule of evidence, which I always felt was terrible, and I'm sure there's an insurance company behind it somewhere, because you're not allowed to mention insurance to a jury. The jury thinks, and so when you so you take a car accident case, right? Let's say my client gets T-boned by a college student, right? And client has a hurt leg, whatever. Insurance company, we talk to them, and they're going to offer us 40 cents on the dollar or 50 cents of a dollar because, screw you, take it to a jury if you don't like it. We take it to a jury. The jury can't know that there's insurance there. They're not allowed to know that there's insurance there. They think I'm just suing some college kid and taking his college money. And I just felt like every time I tried a case like that I need to point to the back row and I say, see that 27-year-old Allstate adjuster up there? He's the one going to pay for all this, right? Your friend Kyle got to be he actually got, believe it or not, they were dumb enough to put him on a jury in Dallas County about a year or two ago.
Whoa.
Oh yeah, and so he had jury duty, and he doesn't show up for work, and they're like, oh, he's got jury duty, and we're like, oh, he'll be back in like an hour, right? Because surely they're not going to put him on. He doesn't come back all day. He doesn't come back the next day. I think he comes back the day after that, and he's like, man, they put me on the jury, and I said, time out, stop. Tell me two things. Tell me there's an insurance company involved, and tell me you stuck it to him. And so anyway. I won't tell you how that story ended, but anyway, that's just that. I'm probably too cynical because again, it's like you said, they do serve a very vital role. I have insurance. I've got insurance for every part of my life, and they do play a very vital role. And we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater on them. But I'll let you talk about insurance because this is your bailiwick, not mine.
Sure. Well, I know you raised some real good points, like the legal fiction that individuals are driving defenses is preposterous.
Right.
Like it really is preposterous, and the fact that the attorneys for the individuals are, a lot of times in-house counsel for insurance companies is also preposterous. Right?
Well, that violates the Texas Professions Association Act. You cannot have the top person at a company, if you're going to be practicing law, they cannot be a non-lawyer. Just like at a hospital, the top person has to be a physician. You can't have a money guy at the top of the chain there. But and insurance companies do this routinely.
But they've carved it out, right? They've carved it out in our legal system, but it is preposterous. And it is a conflict of interest. And, and although I've met many fine folks.
And I have good friends. I have good lawyer friends who we'll have on this show who defend insurance companies, and we'll have them explain themselves.
Yeah,
Teasing,
and that's
but
fine.
Go ahead.
Listen, I am the negotiator. I'm the guy who's the settlement counsel. I'm the one who tries to wrap up the cases for the firm. So I've had a lot of time, and insurance companies have paid us a lot of money. So I can't, this nice little office is provided to you, in part by that, extracting funds from them. But yeah, our whole system is based on a whole bunch of fictions, right? The corporation's not a person.
Corporations are people too. I'm kidding. Of course they're not. Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah.
Yeah, we have all these nice little fictions that we've created that have enabled our society, right? I don't think anybody is the villain in their story, and I always think everybody has justifications for whatever they're doing. Now, whether or not, you and I and several people would agree on that, which is a bedrock of a jury system. Having your peers be able to judge these situations. No, I think it's a system that's definitely built for abuse. Insurance companies make more the less they pay, and there was a whole bunch of was it the McKinsey Group, or I think it was McKinsey Group back in the late 90s. They realized that insurance companies analytics would make more money if they would deny claims and then only pay the ones that essentially fought it all the way out. And so essentially this kind of insurance practice became widely adopted in the early 2000s. That's when you started having all these giant, in the late 90s, early 2000s, it became infused, and there was some brilliant PR moves. The McDonald's case is always the one, that's kind of the seminal example of that, in the sense of, you had a woman that got coffee that was so hot when she spilled it on her lap, it literally burned and fused her genitals together to where she had to have a major reconstructive surgery of her genitals just to urinate and defecate. She had $20,000 medical bills that she was asking McDonald's to pay for. And what they discovered in this practice is that McDonald's was saving worldwide probably $115,000 to $150,000 a day by using inferior beans, but they could still get the same amount of flavor and caffeine of it if they superheated the bean. And so they had this essentially corporate practice that actually injured a whole bunch of people across the nation. And she wasn't even asking for punitive damages when they went to trial. The jury awarded it. And so, that became, the perfect hallmark of a certain political movement that was actually kind of arising at that same time, of just everyone's out for abuse. And, because if you tell everybody that you're not your brother's keeper, it means you can have a more dangerous society and better profits.
Yeah, and that it's interesting too with the McDonald's case, that they were able to really take advantage and twist facts in a Twitter-like matter. Far before Twitter, but it fit in 140 characters or less, and they're able to boom, look at this, and again, I mean, it was heartbreaking to me. Trying personal injury cases, just hearing how people were so dismissive of it when they didn't even hear anything about it. And I remember I used to tell juries on this, I used to say, okay, let's say that I hit you, I'm coming out of the parking lot and I hit you with my car. And then I get out of my car and I say, hey, I'm sorry about this. Send me all your bills. We'll split them 50-50. What do you think about that? And of course, everybody, doesn't like that. And again, now I'm going to sit here and feel a little guilty for having kind of bashed insurance companies a little too much. There is fraud. There is insurance fraud. There are people who do take advantage of the system, and it just makes me upset because it makes your job that much harder.
No, it does, and but that's the universe that we have. I always think about it like this. There certainly is a universe that I could wish for, but my job is to advocate for people in the universe that we live in, with the constraints, the boundaries, the biases, the prejudices, the practical realities of the system that we live in. And so, I think as I've just done this for so long now, that, I've made peace with some of just that. Not that it shouldn't be changed, and I would like to see it move forward, but also realizing there's not a huge amount that I individually am going to do. What I can do is try to help individuals the best that I can. And hopefully give them a platform and a voice when they might not have had one, in order to correct some of these imbalances. And so, that's kind of, what I've made peace with in my existence, because it's like everything. If you think about it all too much, it'll drive you insane.
That's right.
Right? Like, and there's just too much. There's too many things. Like, it's too much to think about all of it. Like, we have to try to focus on things that we can actually effectuate change in. And those things for me are the clients that I interact with, and my employees and my partners, my family, and then, my community that I'm around. Like, those are the people that I can have the positive impact with, and that I try to spend majority of my energy thinking about, because all of the bad scoundrels and difficult problems and systemic issues are things that are beyond my control. And so, not that I don't want them changed, but, if I cannot resolve it, then, I can at least take it off of my heart, and focus my heart elsewhere.
Okay, Paul, we got about a minute left. And so in this one last minute, what's the one single change you want to see in the Dallas civil justice system? Go.
Dallas civil justice system. I would say that modernization of our practices, and they're actually working on it right now, with our jury systems. Because there's a bit of a hiatus right now, I know Dallas County is actually trying to implement much more efficient and realistic jury service practices. And I think that level of service is something that, when modernized, will have a more fair and representative jury pool that are, deciding, their peers' fate.
Excellent. Well, you have been watching The Lawyer Show. And by the way, Paul, before we go, website, phone number, how can people get a hold of Hamilton Wingo? Wingo Hamilton. It's
Hamilton Wingo.
Hamilton Wingo.
www Hamilton Wingo. We have Hamilton Wingo on Facebook. And our number is 214-234-7900.
And I was saying that because I kind of felt like you